Welcome back to Swat&Vee Immigration News. Please don't forget to subscribe if you're new to the channel. In this video, we are going to talk about the latest immigration update. Let's jump into the video. A group of legal scholars from around the country called on Vice President Harris and Senate Democratic leadership to include immigration protection in the reconciliation package. Despite the Senate parliamentarian ruling against the move, the 92 scholars called on Harris Senate Majority Leader Charles Schumer and Senate President Pro Tem not to overrule parliamentarian Elizabeth Magdon, whose ruling are non-binding, but for the presiding officer of the Senate to issue a ruling contrary to her advice. As you know, the Vice President serves as a presiding officer when she is in attendance, and the presiding pro tempore of his designate serves as presiding officer at other times, wrote the scholars. As issues that Magdon ruled on September 19th were incompatible with the rules of budget reconciliation bill, that language that, if enacted into law, would have allowed the federal government to offer legal permanent residence to around 8 million undocumented immigrants and immigrants on humanitarian parole programs who are not currently eligible to apply for permanent residency. Magdon said such a move would be substantial change in policy and would be extraneous to the strictly budgetary requirements known as the Bird Rule, limiting which provisions can be included in a reconciliation bill. When determining whether a provision is extraneous, the presiding officer may rely on the Senate parliamentarian to expect advice, wrote the scholars. However, as part, parliamentarians have emphasized the ultimate decision on a point of order lies with the presiding officer, subject to appeal to the full Senate. The presiding officer therefore must exercise her own judgment in deciding whether a provision should be stricken from a budget reconciliation bill on Bird Rule ground. They added, has stopped. Reconciliation would allow Democrats to sidestep a Republican filibuster, and many immigration advocates believe the current policy climate grants a unique opportunity for a reform on the issue, which might not repeat itself in years. While immigration provisions have not been at the center of intra-party debate on the reconciliation bill, groups of Democrats in the House and Senate have fought to include immigration in the bill. Magdon has so far struck down two separate proposals to grant legal permanent residency through relatively vague memoranda, among other things, arguing that a permanent status would have such non-budgetary impacts as to outweigh its budgetary effects. The scholars wrote that the parliamentarian cannot make a final authoritative determination on that point, that only the presiding officer or the full Senate on appeal can do so. To defeat any appeal to the presiding officer's ruling, Senate Democrats would need 51 votes, meaning Harris would have to be present and presiding over the Senate to cast the tie-breaking vote. And the scholars argue that budgetary effect of granting legal permanent residency status to millions of people will be more than substantial. The outlay and revenue effects of extending LPR status to 8 million people are sweeping. The Congressional Budget Office estimates that the budgetary effect of the LPR provisions would be $140 billion over the next 10 years, more than the entire effect of some status enacted through budget reconciliation in the past, they wrote. The scholars listed a series of social programs and taxes that would be directly affected by granting the status to a large population, from the Affordable Care Act to increase in tax revenues from workers with better salaries. Although the Bird Rules does not allow the provision without merely incidental effect on the budget, the scholars argue the scope of a broad legalization package would have a direct and substantial effect on the federal budget. We see no basis in law or precedents for concluding that these outlay-related effects are merely incidental to LPR status. Access to health insurance, home ownership and affordable rental housing, higher education and income security cannot be characterized as a chance of minor consequences. They are, along with the non-budget related benefits that the parliamentarian canvassed, key elements of lawful permanent residence. They wrote, still, The group, which includes former Democratic Senator Rose Feingold, wrote that the Democrats presiding over the Senate should not overrule McDonald, rather take the responsibility for implementing the Byrd Rule for the Senate to reach its own conclusion on the Byrd Rule's application to immigration provisions should not be seen as an overruling of anyone. Rather, it would recognize that elected members of Congress are ultimately responsible for deciding whether to enact legislation in accord with statutory constraints, the advice of civil servants, the voices of their constituents, and their own considered judgment, they wrote. Hopefully, the details and information presented in this video is helpful. Please share this information with family and friends who may need it. You can also help us spread the message by sharing it on all social media. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe and hit on the notification bell for more immigration updates. Bye!